the clockmaker of hollow sky. Every evening, the sky above Brindle Village ticked like a giant invisible clock. Most people ignored it. They closed their shutters, lit their lamps, and pretended the strange sounds above the clouds did not exist. But Liora listened carefully. She always listened, because broken things made sense to her. And tonight, for the very first time, the sky sounded wrong.
That ticking is too fast. Something up there is breaking.
A massive glowing clock suddenly tears through the clouds, spinning wildly before crashing into the village square in an explosion of golden sparks. Villagers scream and scatter while Liora races across the rooftops toward the impact. As the cracked clock twitches in the square, a tiny mechanical fox crawls out of the wreckage and locks eyes with Liora. Nobody moved closer to the wreckage. Nobody except Liora. The fox looked too alive to be a machine and too strange to be an animal. Tiny gears shifted beneath its copper fur as it limped across the broken clock face. Then it spoke in a scratchy little voice that sounded like turning keys.
Well, this is unfortunate.
You can talk.
You can stare. So I suppose we're both talented.
Pippin jumps onto the shattered clock and presses his paw against a glowing symbol. A map of floating islands suddenly appears in the air above them. One floating island on the map suddenly disappears into darkness. Dark cracks spread across the stars like shattered glass above the village. Pippin explained that the floating islands above the clouds were powered by ancient heart clocks hidden deep inside their cores. One by one, those clocks had begun to stop, and wherever a clock died, darkness spread. Entire islands vanished into the hollow sky, swallowed without a sound.
Why tell me this?
Because you're the only mechanic who ran toward danger instead of away from it.
That sounds less like a compliment.
The workshop trembles as thunder rolls overhead. Through the window, an entire patch of stars flickers out. Pippin opens a hidden compartment in his chest and reveals a glowing key made of blue crystal. A giant rusted elevator rises through endless clouds toward floating islands glowing in sunrise colors. The ancient tower leans above the village cliffs, wrapped in chains and covered in moss. Inside, enormous gears slowly grind beneath transparent floors while glowing steam travels through glass pipes. Outside the tower windows, clouds swirl like giant white oceans. No villager had climbed the sky tower in decades. People said the upper world belonged to ghosts now. But as the elevator groaned upward through the clouds, Liora realized the truth was far stranger. The sky was alive.
This is impossible.
The sky stopped caring about impossible a long time ago.
The elevator shakes violently as shadow creatures glide past outside the glass walls. The elevator doors open onto a floating island where every tree has turned completely black. A field of colorless trees releases silver leaves that dissolve before touching the ground. The once lush forest now appears drained of life. Pale rivers move silently between cracked roots while colorless birds sit frozen in branches. A faint gray snow falls upward into the sky instead of downward. The island looked like a memory fading away. No wind moved through the branches. No insects buzzed. Even the air felt tired. At the center of the forest stood a giant clock tower buried in twisting roots, its hands frozen at midnight.
Can it be repaired?
If we're fast,
And if we're not?
then this island disappears.
Liora crawls into the broken clock mechanism while shadowy shapes watch from deep within the pale forest. The underground chamber glows with dim blue machinery, half swallowed by giant roots. Water drips from the ceiling into black pools that reflect upside-down stars. The heart clock hangs suspended above a massive pit, barely ticking. A gigantic root-covered beast with glowing white eyes emerges beneath the broken heart clock. The creature had once protected the heart clock, but now the spreading darkness twisted its body into something wild and broken. Every step it took shook dust from the ceiling.
Leora's hands trembled as she reached for her tools.
Bad news. That's a guardian beast.
What's the good news?
I'm still thinking.
The beast charges. Pippin distracts it while Liora leaps across collapsing gears to repair the damaged clock core. The heart clock suddenly restarts, blasting golden light through the chamber. Color rushes back across the island like paint spilling through the world. Gray trees bloom into brilliant orange and turquoise leaves while glowing rivers sparkle beneath sunlight. Giant floating jellyfish drift peacefully above the cliffs, their lantern-like bodies swaying in the wind. The island breathed again. Light raced through every branch and river until the entire forest burst back into color. Even the guardian beast lowered its head quietly beside the cliffs, no longer consumed by darkness.
I fixed it.
Yes. You did.
That sounded almost proud.
Don't ruin the moment.
Liora laughs as glowing leaves swirl around her in powerful sky winds. Far beyond the cliffs, an enormous shadow begins moving inside the storm clouds. To reach the clockmaker's citadel, they boarded the last skyrail train still running between the islands. A glowing steam train races across a bridge suspended over endless clouds. The bridge stretches between floating mountains connected by chains thicker than houses. Lightning flashes beneath the clouds while glowing birds scatter through the storm winds. The train windows flicker warmly against the darkening sky.
You always travel by exploding out of the sky?
Only on important days.
Beneath them stretched nothing but endless clouds and darkness. Above them, storm gears slowly turned across the heavens. Shadow creatures suddenly slam against the train windows while passengers scream. One of the shadow creatures peels its face open, revealing glowing clock hands spinning inside. An enormous city hangs upside down beneath a floating crystal island. Crystal towers descend downward into the clouds like glowing icicles. Rivers flow upward along transparent streets, while floating lantern fish swim through the air. Thousands of clocks tick softly from every building. The citadel had once been the center of the sky world. Here, the first clockmakers built machines powerful enough to keep entire islands alive. But now the streets stood empty except for drifting fog and silent ticking.
What happened here?
People left.
Why?
Because they were afraid. As they walk through the city, giant statues slowly turn their heads to watch them.
A giant door opens by itself at the end of the Crystal Avenue. An old woman surrounded by floating mechanical stars repairs tiny clocks in complete darkness. The observatory's ceiling reveals swirling galaxies through cracked crystal glass. Hundreds of glowing clocks orbit slowly around the room like planets. Dust floats through pale blue light beams. The last clockmaker lived alone among fading stars. Her hands shook as she repaired broken clocks too small for anyone else to notice. When she spoke of the Hollow King, her voice sounded filled with regret instead of fear.
He was not born a monster.
Then what happened?
The sky forgot him.
The clockmaker places a glowing memory sphere into Liora's hands. Inside the memory sphere, Liora sees the Hollow King crying alone in darkness. Thousands of broken toys, clocks, and lost memories swirl through a giant storm vortex. The sky here has no stars at all. Torn pieces of floating islands drift endlessly through black clouds while abandoned objects spin slowly in the storm winds. Lightning flashes silently across enormous shadow walls. The hollow sky was made from forgotten things. Lost hopes, broken promises, abandoned dreams. Everything left behind eventually drifted here. And at its center stood the Hollow King, carrying the loneliness of an entire world.
I failed him once already.
Then we don't fail him again.
They navigate collapsing debris while the storm tries pulling them into darkness. The Hollow King finally emerges from the storm, towering above them. The Hollow King sits silently on a throne made of giant frozen clock hands. Massive gears float endlessly around a dark throne suspended over a bottomless void. Lightning flickers beneath transparent floors while shattered stars drift like ash through the air. He did not roar. He did not attack. The Hollow King simply stared at the dying sky around him. Beneath his cracked crown, tiny flashes of blue light flickered like fading memories trying to survive.
Why repair a world that forgets everything?
Because losing things hurts.
Then let it end.
The storm intensifies as the Hollow King rises, his body unraveling into shadow and gears. The final heart clock in the sky suddenly stops ticking. Entire floating islands begin crashing downward through the clouds. The skies split apart with glowing fractures, while waterfalls reverse direction into the heavens. Buildings crumble as giant chains snap between floating mountains. The sunrise burns red through the collapsing clouds. Liora refuses to give up even as the world literally falls apart around her. But through the chaos, Liora remembered something the clockmaker had said. Broken things could still become something new.
We can't stop this.
Then we change it.
Liora deliberately breaks the crystal key in half. The old heart clocks were built to erase broken things. But Liora built something different. Piece by piece, she rebuilt the sky using abandoned memories, cracked gears, lost toys, and damaged dreams. Not perfect, just real.
Nothing should be forgotten forever.
Even me.
Especially you.
The Hollow King's shadows dissolve into glowing light as the new heart clock begins beating like a living heart. Sunlight finally pierces through the storm clouds in radiant beams. The storm clouds finally crack open, revealing a sky full of stars beyond them. Floating islands glow beneath a sky filled with enormous singing constellations. The repaired sky world shines brighter than ever before. Lantern birds soar beside glowing jellyfish, while rivers of light flow between the floating islands. The sky no longer ticked like a machine. Now it sang. Every floating island carried its own glowing rhythm through the stars. Far below, Brindle Village celebrates beneath dancing stars. And whenever strange machines broke in Brindle Village, people no longer hid them away. They brought them to Liora.
Can you fix this too?
Maybe.
That's her way of saying yes. Lyra and Pippin sit together atop the highest rooftop while constellations slowly move like living creatures above them.
Broken things do not lose their value. Sometimes the pieces we try to hide can become the very things that help heal the world. Far above the stars, a tiny forgotten light flickers awake somewhere deep in the universe.